Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology podcast featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. Jay, what's a dolphin?
There was some general discussion about the size of the brain, and that's commonly from the human perspective as we're the peak of development and everything else is, lesser. And they go from the size relative to the size of the body, size of the brain versus size of the body, and so we've got more brain for body size than a lot of other things, and they lay them out in relative size, and this is what they look at, and you can see a little tiny dot up there where there would be a mouse. I mean, I don't know if you can even see the dot with this resolution. Then, chimpanzees and here a mac monkey, a chimpanzee, a human, and an elephant. And they point to this with pride, all swelled up. But what I would suggest is that we need to look at the dolphin. And the dolphin isn't all that much different in body size. I mean, Pete, you're a pretty good sized guy, and
Yeah.
a dolphin would be kind of the same weight class, I would imagine, so
Wait a minute. That's a huge cerebellum. Am I looking at a cerebellum? What is that?
look at the cerebellum. I mean, ours is this spindly little thing here. Yeah, they've got cerebellum we used to think is just motor regulation, but it's also a lot of other things. But look at the development of their cortex. And this is a human. And you think we are the peak of everything because we are on the land and we made a freaking wheel? Dolphin doesn't need a wheel. So anyway, I think we should be humbled somewhat by looking around at nature. What I would also suggest is that we're looking at land creatures that, and this is obviously in the ocean, that they have to swim and breathe. So how do they sleep? One half of the brain sleeps, and then the other half of the brain sleeps, and they continue to swim and breathe. So they've got independence and a development in a way that we don't. The octopus is probably the closest thing we'll ever see to an alien. I mean, it's a whole different nervous system structure. Each octopus leg has its own mini brain that runs it, and they're all coordinated with a smaller central brain. But this is a distributed network method and a total different system than what we've got. So, let's not feel horribly better than them as well. They're escape artists and tricksters in their own way. So
I have to interject a joke here. So the insult is to call somebody a bird brain, and the compliment is to call someone a dolphin brain.
Yeah,
you
perhaps.
Dolphin brain, you.
But
you've seen the moves. That there isn't any human being. There's some fabulous moves on the field in professional football, jumping and twisting, but nothing quite like a freaking dolphin. So their cerebellum regulating movement is one thing, but it's probably also like in the human, involved in executive function and affect, and it interacts with the frontal lobes, basal forebrain. So, we should have a little bit of being humble.
Yeah. Dare I say, compared to even other primates, our coordination and movement abilities are in stage 0
Jay, I'm
in
going to screw up
comparison.
my anatomy here, but the how do you say that?
Corpus callosum.
Corpus callosum.
Oh, I forgot my S. There comes the master.
That little space there, is that because of the weight of the?
Well, we have connections, not just the corpus callosum, but the anterior and posterior
Yeah.
commissure, and the in males the corpus callosum is smaller, much smaller, and in women it's much larger and more well developed. So the interhemispheric connectivity ends up being different male to female, and that shows up in connectivity measurements.
So I wonder about the gender of the dolphins.
Hey, until recently, we couldn't even have a database that could identify the difference between male and female. So we've got a long way to go before we get that kind of knowledge about a dolphin. And given how they're a salient creature, studying them, I mean, we have to have a level of ethics when we're dealing with salient creatures, and these aren't disposable at the end of an experiment kind of an animal. And the same thing, if we go back here, the Mac monkey, which is commonly used in an experiment, the brain structures are highly similar to the human. We've got a little bit more forebrain, but for some people, I think that's just ballast, so just to keep them from falling over. But your executive function, affect, and emotional regulation come here, and the monkeys do have affect, and their frontotemporal, the limbic structures, and so forth are active there as well. So we've got to be, I think, less cruel in our experimentation with animals. The animals on this list, other than perhaps the mouse, again, you see the little dot right there. So mice experiments, they do, but you can't really extrapolate from a mouse experiment to a human. But there's some neurochemical experiments that you can do to see what the effect of something is on other systems. But this is a whole different thing with human and obviously elephants.
Is it technically possible to fill up your hard drive, Jay?
I don't know. So
I start to think
20. I want to flip back 20 years ago.
Okay.
In Mexico, there was a meeting, and the meeting was held in the mountains above Mexico City. We had a few buses that drove everybody from Mexico City up to the mountains. I remember people sitting at the back end of the buses, the roads and the tight turns, the back end, you'd be looking down off of into nowhere, So anyway, we got up all the way to Hacienda Regla, which is a 1700s silver mine and a small town there. And everything, if you look here, you can see the series of arches going across, all done in stone. The stonework here. My partner at the time was Judy. She's passed since, but the everything is done in stone. Big archways, big plazas, an aqueduct system. Yeah, we ate trout from the pond with the meals, with a lot of rice and beans and trout. And nobody got sick in any way while we were up at this Hacienda Regla. And you can see the stonework from the 1700s is still quite spectacular. But they all went out for a mountain ride on the motorcycles to go to this rock formation for some reason. Anyway, here is Barry, but 20 years ago, this is Tanya Morosoli, the president of ISNR now. In Mexico City at the very first Mexican meeting that was held. And I'm blocking on his name. He represented some of the equipment companies down in Mexico. Obviously, Joel and Judy, my old partner, and here's Barry and Steve Baskin.
I wonder what you guys were talking about back then. What was up on the slides?
Well, this was a workshop. Here's me with just a mustache. Barry, this is Jaime Ramon Amica, MD, neurologist, trained at UCLA. Mexico City is his office, and he convened this first meeting. It was sponsored by the government as well, and we had professional translators translating. They had a big plexiglass booth, and they would translate live. And can you imagine translating? I speak a little fast for normal translators, and they kept trying to get me to slow down. So at a lunch break, they had read basically cloths at the table, and I took one of those and I gave them to him, and I said, just wave this so I can see, and I'll slow down. And you could have used that as a fan for the room, you know. Anyway, the group had a lot of fun with the lectures.
What year was this, Jay?
2004, 20 years ago. Joel's giving me the horns in the back of the head here. Yeah. Here's Hank Weeks. Anyway, we had quite a good time. Here is the group, and these are local attendees. But starting here, there's Hank Weeks. I'm in a Hawaiian shirt. Everybody else is like, you know, dressed relatively professionally. Here's me. Here's Joel. Here's Barry. Here's Stephen. Barry's business on the outside, but he's all party underneath, you see here. So, Carlos Novo, some of you may know him. This is the government official, and here's Jaime Ramon Amica, Tom and Terry, Siegfried and his son, and this is Marvin Sams, the ElectroCap international inventor. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it was quite a quite a group. Here you can see the extent of the stonework. It was during the Day of the Dead. This is the house where Barry Sturman was in this area. We were over in this area. So this was the guest house for the speakers. And that was the golden camel that I brought back from Venice. Here's just some local stuff. Now, this is the entrance to the silver mine. There's a gigantic lock, and obviously it's unlocked, and Judy's got the door cracked open. On Day of the Dead, they actually had a dinner party in the mine, all on fancy tables, and it was all served on plates with staff bringing in dinners for everybody on plates. But as you're going in, the side tunnels were not lit, and they would have people in masks jumping out. And once you were seated, they played on period instruments from the 1800s, and they're from the 18th century, I mean, and period music on period instruments, strolling minstrels kind of through the dinner. It was really quite spectacular. Anyway, the arch after arch after arch.
So Jay, well, how did this come up? Did you get like a memory pop up, or it's 20 years?
Yeah,
Like
a
what
memory
happened?
pop up that was 20 years, and there's Barry and Joel and all these folks. Hank Weeks passed, Joel passed, Judy passed. I mean, most of the characters in there are no more active. They're still floating around in the old head here. So.
Going back 20 years, what do you think the biggest advancement has been? Kind of putting everybody on the spot, but being in Mexico back then and sitting in Sioux Sun City now, what do you think the biggest thing has come up in the field in the last 20 years that didn't exist or didn't know back then?
You know, it, just now in England, they came out with a big deal about neurofeedback and neuromodulation. So, using that as the current status, the big difference is that that's classically accepted as being taught. And in advanced schools, this is this is what they're being taught. Um, the kind of feedback that's in that report is tilted to the high end fMRI feedback, which is able to target specific deep functions, the amygdala, the insula, to target them very specifically. And the results are typically fairly well accepted within scientific circles. I have to say, perhaps overly easily accepted. It's highly technical, but there's a core problem with fMRI, and that's replication. And I don't know if you are aware of the dead salmon effect.
What is the dead salmon effect, Jay?
Well, there's an fMRI lab that was going to set up an experiment with people, showing them pictures and whatnot, and to set up the experiment and everything, they were going to set up their procedures, and they went across the street to the deli and bought a dead salmon, brought it in, strapped it down in the scanner, and went through their procedures, producing pictures that were emotionally evocative or not. And sure enough, they were getting responses in their fMRI analysis from these dead freaking salmon.
Yeah.
You know, they're so you've got to think twice before you believe the experiment. There may be a procedural technique that they've done that has found something that's actually artifactual. And thus the request for larger studies and a replication study. And that at that point you can start to believe them. But there's good fMRI feedback at this point that's being done. As an example, there's one that was done in 2024, published, and it's fMRI feedback on the insula, and it's control over pain and pain perception.
Yeah.
So
If I could jump in here, and I'm going out on a limb, and it's always very risky to talk this way, but I think it's very, very important for our discipline to hear this, that I unfortunately agree very much with Jay that there isn't a heck of a lot that's advanced in the knowledge, but the packaging of the knowledge. And one of the things that I'm always talking about is the emphasis on the technology versus the emphasis on the knowledge that helps us to use the technology for the purpose we really want. So of course, I'm spinning back to reliability and validity, and Jay was talking about replication. The other issue I think that is unfortunately negative is that many things are going proprietary now. So essentially we have the burying of the knowledge. One of the things that I really liked when I joined this field and this mass is there was tons of experimentation, and I mean that in a positive way, not a negative way. There was immense curiosity. There was tons and tons of sharing. And I think there was this building, this scaffolding of the knowledge. And of course, there were bifurcations, and there was some many, many interesting discussions. But all of the knowledge was out there and open. And my kind of fear now is I think there are some really, really interesting things going on, but everybody's afraid to share them now. So yeah, I guess this is a generalized appeal, in terms of, how do we build the knowledge, share the knowledge, be able to replicate the knowledge, and how do we use the packaging? So essentially the technologies to advance us, not to box us. The capacity of the technology is just out of this world. But I think it's keeping certain individuals out of the practice for cost, for understanding what you do. And then it's welcoming individuals who really like the flash of the super technology, et cetera. And I think we really need to go back to the core. Nothing wrong with fancy technology, as long as we really, really understand, and not just what it does, but how to wield it ourselves. I talk a lot about artificial intelligence, artificial, and where the computers are doing it all on their own, versus what I call assisted intelligence, or other people talk about human in the loop, but I kind of coined assisted intelligence because I think people can understand it more. And that's where there's always one of us monitoring the raw signal, looking at the raw signal, noticing things, advancing things. My other big problem with artificial intelligence is the input. Okay. And it's going and going and going, but we have to remember that everything artificial intelligence does is based on input. And one of my fears now is we're stopping the input. We're stopping the human intelligence input, just letting the machines kind of do their own thing. Now, that's fine at one level. Okay, the machines, the computer systems are going to see things we don't see. Yes, but we can't stop putting in the what we see, the new things we see. We still have to feed the machines, if that makes any sense.
Dr. Marie, the show is recording on Halloween.
Yes.
And I saw something pop up. There's a reason why people are afraid of clowns. And I think you would find this interesting.
Okay.
You have a wild speculation. This is something we've talked about, you specifically.
Oh, facial expressions. I think it's all too extreme. Yeah, and my little joke about the evolution and all the games that we play with children, nobody ends on the weird odd face. I think it's just overexposure, over arousal, and they can't interpret the facial expressions. Am I right?
You are totally right.
Hey.
What about people that want to wear costumes past Halloween?
Well, many of us
Hey,
do anyways.
hey, hey,
Yeah.
hey, 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 hey.
Well, they're functional costumes. Yeah.
I answer the door for Halloween and they say you're dressed like a pirate.
You say, I am. I dress, therefore I am. Yeah.
Well, there's a group of people out there. I don't want to put down anybody, but I think they call them furries. They dress up at.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
kind of where I was going. What is going on with that, Dr. Marie?
Well, do you want the adult
Yes.
version or the well, I mean, just like any passion or hobby that just kind of goes over and starts to affect alter ego and then identity. These people are just so passionate about it, but there's a whole sexual component to the first. Now, I'm not saying everybody is involved in this, but is a whole um, I don't know how to put this, but essentially there's sex parties where individuals do not remove their costumes, and they're very, very intrigued and excited and very much enjoy anonymous sex in furry costumes. I'm not going to judge this, but it's just.
I'm not judging. I want to know where they're at.
Well, that's where they're at. Now, I'm not saying, and like we have to be really careful about how far we globalize this, like everybody that has, well, I mean, there used to be
Check with your
songs about.
primary care physician first.
Yeah, no, there used to be, I don't know, in the 1980s, if you wore a handkerchief in one pocket versus the other, it told individuals that you were into this sexual act or that sexual act. This was in the gay community. If going to the other extreme, this was very worrying, where teenagers would wear different colors, elastics on their wrists, which would indicate what sexual acts they were interested in and would perform again at parties. So, I mean, there's nothing new about this. And, whatever floats your boat, as they say. Yeah, I'm not as spicy as you probably want me to be, Pete.
No, I'm just
But yeah,
people
but I
wanting to
mean,
be somebody else.
yeah,
If you're a
but I mean, there's the
dolphin, do
whole
you
furry thing. But I mean, if you also go to ski hills, there are people skiing in kangaroo suits and whatnot. It doesn't mean that they're into that, right? So you have to be really, really careful about how much you project.
well, I don't
Excuse
see that
me.
dolphin wanting to be a furry rabbit. Or maybe, who knows? How do I know?
I don't know. I don't know. No, I mean, we are interesting, our sexual practices and the kink culture. And, my attitude is, as long as everything is consensual and you're of age and you're safe, who the heck is anybody to judge?
I'll
It
put
may
that in
not
the
be your thing,
description.
may not be my thing, could be somebody else's thing. Yeah. But I mean, sometimes it can cross over. I mean, many of us do see individuals with yeah, it's sexual proclivities that they're not pleased with themselves, and we can help people work through that, right? I'm not talking about sexual deviance or pedophilia or those type of things. That's a different category. Um, but
You
yeah,
bringing
there's
a
a wide
P
range of
Diddy?
interests. Sorry?
Bringing a
Oh,
Puff Daddy?
yeah. I mean,
What's going
power,
on with that? That's a
sexual
lot of
power,
oil.
violence. I mean, it's as old as the other profession, as they say, the way males exude violent sexual power over females. I mean, it's disgusting, to say the least. That's another thing. If we really want to get political, I don't know whether this is the right show, but
Well, it'll
but
come out right after
really,
the election, so everybody's going to be.
well, yeah, I mean, no, in terms of the elections, it's driving me crazy how everybody is talking about abortion rights, abortion rights. I wish people would change the phraseology. You're talking about forced pregnancy. Okay, I think we need to look at the whole other side. This is forced pregnancy. If a male imposes himself on a female through incest or rape, and that female is forced to carry, that's a forced pregnancy. You should not be talking about abortion at this point, okay? Even in terms of, the accidents of life, where a couple, whether they make love or have raw sex, who cares? And there's an unexpected pregnancy, okay? How do you verse this, as a abortion, or is this a forced pregnancy? I think we're looking at things through the wrong lenses here, right?
I want to look through it through the mental health lens.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There are stories of women who, again, have been forced. Typically, they were out of Ireland. I know Sinead O'Connor at the time was a revolutionary in terms of really bringing this to world attention, of young females who were forced to carry and deliver the children of their fathers, literally their fathers, with incest. How you destroy that young female. Also in terms of, Jay, you might be able to jump in here in terms of the development of a fetus, and the knowledge that it is not just not wanted, but the fight within the system of the female carrying this fetus. Yeah, I think it's a conversation that we really, really need to open up. I don't know
I don't know
how.
what we're opening up. I want to know why is the guy doing that? Because it happened to them? Like what's going on in the brain that this is happening? Because that's AB normal, isn't it?
I think it's taught behavior. In terms of in what cultures is this accepted or acceptable? You look at culture, you look at subculture. So there's culture on a global level, there's culture on a community level, there's culture on a family level. Okay. But look, war culture is a perfect example. Rape is used just as a gun is used. You kill the men and you rape the women. This is a tactic of war. Right? It is about power. It is about control, right? The incels now that we're talking about, that believe that it is their right to violently sexually dominate a female, that females do not have the right of sexual refusal.
Are you saying
It's
it's only
everywhere.
guys? What about the ladies? I've seen some ladies out there that are kind of rough. Why are they
Yeah,
doing it?
yeah. Well, I think I'm again probably getting some trouble here. But it's different. A predatory female is very different than a predatory male. And sorry, just the way males and females' brains are different, our structures are different. Generally speaking, females are smaller than males. The ability to absolutely overpower a male is lesser, right? I know there's some interesting things in terms of, can you rape a male or not? When you're talking about arousal templates and whether a male succeeds in having an erection or not. I think that I'm not qualified enough to
Well, why
comment.
don't dolphins have this problem?
Actually, dolphins do.
Do they?
Yeah, yeah. There have been instances of again. I'm going to only be able to open the conversation. I'm not going to be able to round it out. But there have been instances where it has been witnessed in nature where dolphins are also sexually violent. I don't know why.
They hang out with the
there's
tunas.
Huh.
there's an author, Kathy J. Forti, Forti. She does um, kind of new age books. But she reported being raped by a dolphin in one of those swim with the dolphin
Right.
circumstances,
Yeah.
and that was printed up in the local paper, and
Yeah.
it's part of some of the discussions that she has about her earlier life.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah. It has
yeah.
been noted. It has been recorded. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah. I remember, it's kind of funny on it was in Greece actually, and we were sailing in lots of dolphins, and one of the women wanted to jump in and swim with the dolphins, and the locals were like, "No, lady, you're a fool. These are wild animals. You don't just jump in there." And they said even the bigger males will play around with you. They didn't mention anything like raping of a human or anything, but
Yeah.
you don't just jump in and it's kind of like, I want to play with that big teddy bear. No, ma'am, that's called a grizzly.
I don't know how we got on zoology, but
I
what are
know
some of
what-
well, we started with the dolphin. What can the dolphin do that like with their brain? Because they talk, right? They can communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, is that the
Yeah, I'm sure some AI is going to end up having the ability to translate dolphin speak at some
Oh
point.
yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah. It's
they're
coming.
they're getting better at birds and whatnot. So
Yeah.
but yeah.
See,
Oh,
that's a good use of AI.
so I'm
what about
still
Sky?
looking.
What
I'm still looking for intelligence. The artificial kind will come along after we find real intelligence first. You know. So
well, isn't AI really just feedback? So the feedback is artificial, right?
there's different kinds. Machine learning. I mean, there's uh, 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 we should bring Rogine Eichler West
Yeah.
on
Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
for
yeah.
a discussion of the kinds of AI and the kind of the state of it. And there's some interesting potential applications. The I saw a circumstance where they had asked AI whether they could replace the neurologists and electroencephalographers reading EEG, and the AI suggested that it would need a programmer and an electroencephalographer and lots and lots of data. And I said, yeah, about 500,000 records at least, So, the the difficulty with that kind of a project is, it was very well funded. Stanford jumped in on it. Emmett Aitken is the doctor that headed it up, and they had 37,000 EEGs that were already digitized and ready to go for scrubbing. AI would learn the EEG. Well, what
How'd that
EEGs
go?
do they have? They had hospital EEGs for epilepsy and encephalopathies. They didn't have autism and ADD and depression and bipolar, and the breadth and depth of the psychiatric world was not there in their data. So their AI couldn't learn shit about anything but epilepsy and encephalopathies. And it's unfortunate. Well, they came to me and asked, they heard that I had lots and lots of data. I said, yeah, but I can't give it to you. I've got clients and they've got patients, and those patients' data are what are on my servers and your HIPAA servers, and you can't get them. These are patients' data, and you don't have permission from the patient to share it, and so no.
You know
But
what I think is the AI is really good now for, and I'm going to make a analogy that everybody knows. It's the, control F. I think it's perfect. So essentially, find this in a data file. I think that can be really, really helpful. But in terms of finding new things and helping us discover things, and I think a lot of the AI essentially takes it out now or ignores it. Jay, what are your feelings on that?
well, using the old skin version of intelligence and looking at 500,000 EEGs or more, I saw the phenotypic patterns
Yeah,
and published about it. So,
yeah, yeah.
AI is going to have the ability to scrub data and find patterns the same way I did.
Mhm. But
And
it'll miss them. It'll miss them. Mm.
yeah, you know, uh, uh, the thing is, I had to have my observations prospectively validated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's say AI finds something. Well, that's finding something in old data. You've got to now prospectively test what they think they found.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, the phenotype stuff all panned out. They found the genetic linkages that I had proposed were there. We just didn't know what they were.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's all great, but it's just as easy to have proposed something and have it, not be real at all.
Mhm.
Just when your data speaks to you,
Yeah,
you are either freaking crazy or you're seeing something real in your data, and
yeah,
you have
yeah,
to publish about what you found
yeah,
and find out whether you're crazy or not.
yeah.
Well, for me, I always assumed that to be the case in the first place, but I thought the data was interesting anyway.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
well, everybody I think knows my love of outliers. Yeah.
well, the show's coming out. The election is just, let's see, 2 days past the election. I'm sure all the talk therapists will be busy. I'm sure-
Well, let's talk about that. I mean,
yeah.
the fatigue, like,
There, there,
I
there
just,
won't be there won't be any decision yet by 2 days after the
You
election.
think so?
yeah, yeah. But how many people are
I think
still,
this is going to be held up in litigation and courts and stuff for a while.
yeah. But the exhaustion, the absolute exhaustion, like I've been following a little bit, obviously, and then last night I just kind of turned on the TV for a bit, and then all of a sudden Trump was in a garbage truck, and I'm like, enough, enough. This is theater. This has nothing to do with politics, the advancement of the U.S., et cetera. It's just plain theater. And I just, after a few minutes, I just, you can't watch this anymore. Like how can all of you watch this? And well, I mean, my fear is you're so involved in the theater that you're actually not really talking about
Yeah.
real things anymore.
My
You
fear is, how
know,
did you find
if
out
you
about that?
if
What's
you
worse?
live in a swing state,
Yeah.
you are saturated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Every single ad has been
Yeah.
purchased. Every single billboard has been purchased. There's flyers. There's hangers on the door.
Mhm.
There's mailers. There's if you haven't had your phone blow up with texts and emails and
But wouldn't people at a
calls and
certain
whatnot.
point just say F this, like just enough and not vote? I mean,
What
please
what do you
don't, please vote, but
what
just
do
in
you
terms of
what do you
the,
think some of the actions are intended to do?
yeah, yeah.
You know,
What,
so
political advertising? I
there's
can't believe that's happening.
oh, they're arresting people that are going to polling places, threatening people in the lines.
Wow.
You know, and they've arrested people that have punched people who are working in the polls. You can't wear a political sign or something like that in, and the guy had a hat that had a political
Mega.
party on it, and he was told to take it off, and he popped the guy, and
Mm.
he's arrested. What a stupid, shitty thing to do,
Yeah.
and it's a hat, you know.
We-
So, anyway, the people firebombing mail drops, and the Supreme Court just approved throwing 1,500 people off the rolls, but in that state, it's not that big a deal because you can go, and if they don't see you on the rolls, you can register the same day and then get a provisional ballot and vote. So it's not really going to stop anybody, really.
Oh.
So
Well, the show,
Ah,
happy 48 hours past election. Jay thinks we won't have a verdict yet.
I don't think you will either.
Well, we'll see. Good mental health to all. Dr. Marie Swingle, Jay Gunkelman. See you next time.
it'll all work
Yay.
out. Bye-bye.
It all work out. It always has. Our founding fathers, it's set up exactly how they wanted it.
The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.